Have you ever felt like you were being watched, even when you were completely alone? As if, no matter how much you looked around, a presence was lurking, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And what if I told you that sometimes, what we feel isn't just an illusion, but a real perception of something that is truly there watching, waiting, and maybe even following? I never believed in this kind of thing either until one night, when, by a twist of fate, I was challenged to spend the night in an abandoned house, isolated on top of a hill, the kind of place that, for most, would be nothing more than an urban legend, but for me, became a nightmare I still can't fully explain. My friends and I thought it was just another spooky story, something meant to scare the more sensitive ones. But when night fell and the fog consumed that house, we painfully realized that not all legends are just stories. Some are real, and some of them you should never get involved with. But if you think this is just another horror tale, I invite you to listen until the end, because by then, you might just start to rethink what you believe in. The idea came up simply, like any other. We were in the middle of a trip with friends, one of those moments when everything feels like a big game, and fear is the last thing on your mind. The plan was to camp on one of the many mountains around the city, but on the way, we got caught up in a strange curiosity, the infamous house on the hill. I had never heard a clear story about that house, yet somehow, every local seemed to avoid talking about it. Whenever someone mentioned the place, their tone changed. The laughter and casual conversations about the local horror story always ended in tired sighs and nervous glances. It was something no one dared to explore. But we, in our youthful arrogance, decided we would be the first to unravel the mystery in a more light-hearted way. By the time we reached the hill, the sun was already beginning to set behind the mountains. The house stood before us, imposing and battered by time. The front steps were cracked, and the walls had begun to give in to the weight of the years. And yet, there was something hypnotic about the place. As if the house had been waiting for uses, if it already knew that our curiosity would be our doom. As we stepped through the rusted gate, a cold breeze wrapped around us. The air grew heavier, as if the atmosphere surrounding the house was thick with something different. Something we couldn't quite identify at the time. Of course, we decided to go inside. The creaking of the door as we pushed it open sounded like a warning. The smell inside was of deep mildew, a mix of dust and dampness that had likely settled for decades. The furniture was covered in dirty sheets, and most of the windows were shattered, allowing the wind to whistle through with a constant moan, as if the house itself was sighing, begging to be left alone. The first room was a living area, where the remains of a collapsed fireplace suggested that, long ago, this had been a place of warmth now forgotten by time. The walls were stained, but the marks seemed like more than just dirt. They were wrong. The glow of our flashlights, weak and flickering, gave the unsettling illusion that the darkness was pooling in certain corners of the room. That was when one of my friends, braver than the rest, suggested we go upstairs. "Who's afraid of an old house?" he said, without realizing that those words would mark the beginning of everything. And once again, purely out of curiosity, we went. The wooden stairs groaned beneath our feet, the aged planks protesting our presence. When we reached the top, a dark, narrow hallway stretched before us. The smell of dampness was even stronger up there, as if this was the heart of the house. The doors were shut, but, as we looked at them, it felt as though something was shifting behind one of them. I couldn't say what it was, but I felt it vividly, something that should not be disturbed. One door in particular caught our attention. It was slightly open, yet unlike the others, it didn't seem to have been touched in a long time. The lock was rusted, but somehow, it looked like it had been forced open recently, like someone had tried to keep it shut, and then chose to stay away. We decided to take a look inside, and as we pushed the door open, a strange sensation washed over us. It was as if the house was breathing, coming to life. The air was heavier, denser, and the darkness so thick that, for a moment, I felt like I was suffocating. The room was large, its walls covered in strange symbols, something that looked like writing, but didn't belong to any language we knew. We had no idea what they meant, but it was clear that these markings weren't ordinary, as if, long ago, someone had tried to summon something, or worse, keep something trapped. And that's when we heard the footsteps. Soft, steady, coming from the floor below. I froze. I looked at my friends and they were just as motionless. No one dared to speak. The footsteps continued, but there was no one downstairs. One of my friends, apparently the bravest among us, suggested we go check. But as we made our way down the stairs, the sound stopped, and the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. We had thought nothing in that house could scare us. But that changed the moment we heard the laughter. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. It was coming from somewhere very close, somewhere just beyond our sight. And then, the figure appeared. It was like a shadow, something that was there but shouldn't have been. Its eyes were black. So black that they seemed to swallow all the light around them. We couldn't make out its face, but its body was pale, almost cadaverous. The figure stood at the end of the hallway, watching us, expressionless, studying us, as if it knew more about us than we did ourselves. I was frozen. A wave of fear, so massive and uncontrollable, crashed over me. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. It was as if that being, that thing, was holding us captive in its gaze. And when it moved, it did so with an eerie slowness, calculated, deliberate, like it was enjoying this. I don't know how long we stood there, paralyzed, unable to react, but the figure stepped toward us, soft, dragging steps, and then, just like that, it vanished. When it disappeared, we finally broke free from our trance. We ran. We ran without looking back, not knowing whether we were escaping an illusion or something real. But what waited for us outside was no better. The door we had entered through was shut. We tried opening it, but it was locked. Panic consumed us. What once felt like a weekend adventure had now become a living nightmare. The fog outside had thickened, and the air was ice cold. I felt a pressure in my chest, a sensation that we were being hunted. And then, as if the house had become our prison, the door that once welcomed us was now locked from the inside. Something was keeping us there. I never went back to that house. I don't know what happened to my friends, and to be honest, I'm afraid to find out. What I do know is that, since that night, I've never truly felt safe anywhere again. Sometimes, I feel like something is still following me, like that presence we encountered in that house. Never really left. And you? Have you ever felt like you were being followed? Like something unseen was watching, waiting for the right moment to show itself? If you have, share your story in the comments. And if you liked my experience, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more terrifying stories. Oh, and there's another video on the channel you won't want to miss. That is, if you're brave enough.